you go home, you can click on this, you can go open up the actual report. I was told we got 10-year supply of oil left, you got global cooling on the way, you got a coming ice age, you had a population bomb, all these just extreme fears were put into us. They were 180 degrees off, if they're right today. Just within 30 years, they've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, and now they're expecting you to believe the other end. Next. Once again, I went through the population bomb. Jimmy Carter was telling us that we had a 10-year supply of oil. I was thinking we were going to be living in igloos with nothing to heat the house. It was just fear-mongering beyond belief. But that's what I experienced. And then as we know what happened after the 70s, we had an oil glut in the 80s and 90s. We're just now starting to have the price of oil go back higher. Okay? They're dead wrong. 100% off. Next. More ironic is today, they sit there and they tell you about the melting ice cap. Right? That's a big fear right now. Well, back when I was a kid, they proposed melting the ice cap to prevent global cooling. They had a solution proposed such as melting the Arctic ice cap by covering it with black soot. So back then the environmentalists were saying the way we're going to save the world is by melting the ice cap. Today they're all hysterical every time you see an iceberg break off of the Arctic. Okay. Next. This is another one. This comes out of the National Geographic. What I found interesting about this one was back then they said global cooling caused all these hurricanes, extreme weather climate changes, storms, floods. Back then they were saying global cooling was causing it. Today, you get the same thing, but it's global warming causing it. So which is it? Bottom line is they just happen. Okay? But back then, when the argument was global cooling, they said that this global cooling was going to cause all these traumatic changes. There's also a nice little quote, experts agree they cannot yet predict climate change with any assurance, and I'd make the argument they still can't. Next. Okay. Who remembers the ozone hole? You're probably young, old enough to remember the ozone hole. Right? Why haven't you heard about it recently? The reason you haven't heard about it recently is because they banned it back when I was a kid. They banned all the CFCs. Since 1995, the concentration of CFCs has been going down. But this is just in the headlines this week. Ozone hole hitting a record high. So I grew up thinking these CFCs are killing everybody. I thought if we stopped out, if we put all these people out of business that made CFCs, stopped all these refrigerants from being produced, we're going to save the world, stop the ozone hole from growing. Well, they stopped the CFCs all right, but the ozone hole just kept growing. And that's during a period when the CFC concentrations were decreasing. So if you make that argument, what you should be doing is increasing the CFCs to start shrinking it, because clearly by decreasing the CFCs, the ozone hole has increased. Once again, you can click on this, and it'll take you right to the link, so don't take my word for it. This is the research that's out there. More importantly, I had this thing down here. You know why back when I said the libertarians are concerned about liberty, freedom, how it costs lives? Just last year, we had 35,000 people died from heat stroke over in Europe. I'd make an argument, a large number of those people probably didn't have air conditioners, and they probably didn't have air conditioners because you don't have because when they banned CFCs, refrigerants became much more expensive. Okay? So instead of having cheap air conditioning over there, you have a bunch of dead people. Next. Okay. Who remembers DDT? Okay? DDT was a big fear also. Once again, just this week, the WHO is recommending using DDT indoors. Okay? This is such a dangerous product, they're recommending that it be used indoors. More importantly, this is from Al Gore's movie. You get The Inconvenient Truth? This is his book. Al Gore is saying that with global warming, malaria is even becoming worse. So he's saying global warming is causing malaria, but he certainly didn't say anything about how do you stop malaria. If you want to stop it, you stop it with DDT. Oops. Sorry about that.
Maybe your little thingy is actually starting to work. There we go.
Alright. How about by
Hit escape.
Oh, okay, you got it.
Okay. Okay, well, once again, in Al Gore's movie, he makes the big thing here that global warming will actually cause more malaria. Well, WHO came out to the rescue this time saying, well, forget about a lot of stuff you're told about DDT, it's safe anyways, go ahead and use it. Okay? This little guy down here is chasing his tail. Okay, it goes into another idea of the libertarians. We don't want the government wasting a lot of money. So once again, we wasted not only a bunch of money, but over 10 million people die a year from malaria that could have been prevented from using DDT. Okay, those are 10 million lives lost. Okay, before we go on, I want you to think about the data. I'm sure most of you have had science, you have a science background. Think about if you are going to use a drug that's gone through the FDA approval process, think about the science processes that you'd want them to follow. Think about the type of data you would want them to collect. And think about how you would want them to use and run their experiments. And think about, when I cover some of these things, ask yourself if they would have done, if a drug company would have done that, would you have trusted that drug? Okay? First of all, you'd want them to use a consistent data source, right? If I'm going to go out there and use, measure weight, I want to make sure the same person, the test was done on the same scale, using the same type of a scale. You can measure weight a lot of different ways, but I wouldn't want to see some people being measured by, taking their waist multiplied by their height. Some people, put in a bath of water, see what the displacement is. You'd want to see them just basically using a scale, which is a direct measurement of weight, for as much of the data as they can. Okay, direct over proxy, you want to see them measuring things directly. You can measure the age of a person through their teeth. You can also just look at their birth certificate or ask them. More than likely, if you're going to do it, a study on age, you want to make sure that they're looking at their birth certificates or simply asking people. Okay, multiple confirming measurements. You don't want to just take one measurement here, one measurement there. You want to have different measurement sources, all confirming your conclusion. And comprehensive. If you're going to come out there and you're going to say the person has a rash over 90% of the body, you'd want them to take a look at 100% of the body to make sure that it's a valid comment. Well, let's go back and take a look at all this. Here are the charts. Temperature. This comes from the IPCC report, by the way, International Panel of Climate Change. This isn't my chart. This is the chart that's being used to make policy. This backs the Kyoto Treaty. Carbon dioxide. That came from one of the preeminent global warming scientists who gave a lecture right over here at Ohio State. Before I go on any further, does anyone disagree with those charts? That's what we're told. This is what the scientists are using. So if you disagree with it, we'll have a problem. But pretty much that's what you got. Let's take a look at this data. Okay? First of all, let's take a look at carbon dioxide. Okay. What's the most prominent or most important greenhouse gas out there? What is it?
Carbon dioxide.
Does anybody disagree with that? Besides you. CO2 is the most potent greenhouse gas out there, right?
No.
What is?
Methane.
Methane is not.
No.
Water vapor is, believe it or not. Methane is actually right here. It has a higher potential,
Yeah.
but it contributes a lot less. Okay? The most important greenhouse gas out there is water vapor. You're never told that, but it is. Right? Now, why wouldn't they tell you that water vapor is the most important greenhouse gas? Because they can't make an argument that man causes it because nature causes all the water vapor. So when you put all the greenhouse gases together, okay, CO2 is negligible. Zip. All right? Water vapor constitutes Earth's most significant